So we'll call the meeting to order.
No,
Not yet.
we're not live yet. Good morning, Council. We are live.
Thank you. We'll call the meeting to order. We respectfully acknowledge that the Township of Algonquin, Highlands is located on Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations. We also acknowledge a historic shared presence of other Indigenous nations throughout the area, and we recognize these original inhabitants as the stewards of its lands and waters since time immemorial. Could I have a mover and a seconder to approve the agenda today? Councillors Shortreed and Barry.
By Councillor Shortreed, second by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved that the November 6th, 2025 regular meeting agenda be approved as circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof today? Councillor Richards.
Under Public Works 14E, the affected area is part of my property.
Okay, thank you. Under Mayor's remarks, although I don't usually speak too much under Mayor's remarks, I would just like to acknowledge that I have had an accident, a couple of weeks ago, and I really want to thank everyone who's helped me in so many different ways, and ask for your indulgence should I stumble a little bit throughout the meeting. I'll say no more. Could I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the minutes of October the 16th? Deputy Mayor Dayu and Councillor Barry.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, seconded by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved that the October 16th, 2025 regular meeting minutes be approved as circulated.
All in favor? That's carried. We will now move into the public meeting. Could I have a mover and a seconder to move to public meeting? Councillor Shortreed and Richards.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved, Council adjourns its regular session at 9:02 a.m. in order to proceed into a public meeting in accordance with the Building Code Act 1992 SO 1992 regarding building permit fee changes.
All in favor? That's carried. So we'll ask for Mr. Moore to give us his report on the fee structure.
Apologies, I couldn't get my video on.
Morning,
Good morning,
Greg.
Mayor and Council.
Good morning.
Yes, I find myself before you again, twice in as many years to discuss the permit fee increase. This current year was basically a status quo of the last couple. We did not realize a large uptick in permit volume. Therefore, we are not anticipating enough fees generated to cover our expenses. So having said that, I took this to the rest of the municipalities up to chapter meeting, and apparently we're all in basically the same situation. And the fee increase that I'm proposing is basically what the rest of the county is going to be looking at. Beyond that, I have received no comments one way or the other regarding the fee increase.
Thanks, Greg. I'm really pleased to hear that we're in line with the other municipalities in the county. I would ask if members of council have any questions about the fee schedule. And Councillor Barry.
Just in regards to, the housing crisis, is there any incentive for new builds, that type of thing? In regards to fees being waived for new builds?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there is no incentive through this office. That would have to be something that council would discuss and and authorize.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Dayu?
I suppose just in furtherance to,
Oh,
Here I'm mute.
can't hear you.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
great. So apologies for that. Yes, I wonder, Mr. Moore, if you could confirm just in furtherance to Councillor Barry's comments, when a deeply affordable housing initiative comes to a municipality somewhere, via, say, Habitat for Humanity or another new build group, but that is focused on, affordable housing, can we approve waiver of waiving the fees as a one-off?
Through you, Madam Mayor, certainly. Yeah, that can certainly be done. A one-off, one time. Council can decide to do that per case or as a policy going forward.
Great, thank you.
Do you know, Mr. Moore, whether or not any other municipalities do that or have that built into their fee schedule?
I am unaware of any other municipality doing that. And in fairness, a new home, pretty good sized new home, you're looking at between 2,000 and 4,000 for permit fees, 2 being the norm. So it's not a huge impact on a new build these days.
Okay. Well, we'll, just sort of keep an eye on that. And if we do have an affordable housing project come forward, we can talk about the fees for that. I'm just glad to hear that we can do it on a one-off basis as opposed to having to revise the fee schedule again. Or would we have to revise the fee schedule?
That's a good question. I can check into that further. I know that the act permits council and municipalities to provide bylaws and policies regarding fees and types of classes of permits and so on. I know that we must do this public meeting to increase the fees. I don't remember any mention of whether or not we can just simply relax on fees without this sort of protocol. I'll have to check into that further.
Okay. Any other questions from council? And as a matter of formality, is there anyone in the room or online who wants to speak to the fee schedule?
No, there's not.
Okay, then could I have a motion or a mover and a seconder to return to the regular meeting? Councillors Richards and Barry.
Moved by Councillor Richards, seconded by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved, council adjourns its public meeting at 9:07 a.m. and regular session resumed.
All in favor? That's carried. Do we need to have a resolution to receive the report?
Yes, we have a resolution for that.
Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillors Shortreed and Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, council receives report BLDG 1525 regarding the proposed changes to the building permit fees presented during a public meeting in accordance with the Building Code Act 1992 SO 1992, and council directs the proposed changes to the building permit fees be brought forward on the December 11th regular council meeting for consideration.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Next up is the Dorset Community Christmas Tree Survey. And I'm expecting that Mr. Card would speak to that.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Good morning. So talk to us about the Christmas tree survey.
Yes, so as council is aware, it has become apparent over the past several seasons that the historic Dorset Community Christmas tree has naturally gone past its prime. And in the past year, we looked at an opportunity to spade in or plant a new tree on site. And upon further staff review, before we went that direction, when we were back in budget deliberations and projects and priorities heading into this year, we identified that there is a tree on site that we'd like to offer as an option and survey the community about it. So what we're looking to do is do the community survey through Let's Connect Algonquin Highlands, which is Bang the Table, and ask the question of the township whether or not they'd like to go with the proposed tree, which is a beautiful white pine just inside the gates, just to the right, or look to plant a new tree somewhere else on site. So that would be the premise of the survey. What we'd look to do is align this with this year's tree lighting. So we'd light both trees, and then that way people would have an opportunity to see what the new proposed tree looks like. And I think this also has the added benefit of the tree is already there, it's healthy, whereas there is some risk involved when you're spading in a large mature tree on a new site, whether or not that tree is going to survive just the rigors of that planting. But we'd still like to ask folks the question and give them the opportunity. I put photos of the existing tree on the report, as well as the proposed new tree for everyone's information. In addition to that, recognizing that the existing tree has heritage attached to it, and it's been used for a number of years. And at one time, I've come to understand there was a plaque there at that tree. It hasn't been there in my time, but the folks at the Dorset Heritage Museum Committee let us know that it said the Dorset Community Christmas Tree, igniting the spirit in our community since 1994. So what I'd like to do at the same time is reach out to the committee and have a discussion with them about a new plaque and a dedication type ceremony when we do finally officially designate a new tree.
I really appreciate the pictures, and I certainly like the idea of lighting up both trees during the tree lighting ceremony so people can get a good idea about how the new tree would look. Questions or comments from council? Deputy Mayor Dayu?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I really like those ideas. I have a couple of thoughts. The first is, have you identified where a potential new tree could go, with the thought of showing folks on the day of the Christmas tree lighting what space it might take, so that they're sort of aware of all three options before before throwing their vote in? That's my first question.
And through you, Mayor, a precise location hasn't been chosen, and that's because I'd like the input of the company and the professionals on an exact location. However, just for soil conditions and those types of things, and the variety of tree, the species. However, what I envision is it would be to the right of the gates, near the front, behind the gardens, for two reasons. One, it would allow easy access to power, because when we put in our new lights along the pathway there, we included power outlets for the purposes of Christmas tree, or sorry, just Christmas lights or any sort of power for community events. So we'd have easy power right there. We'd be able to bring it over that way. But we also need to consider the rest of the park space for things like the toboggan hill is there, where we have the toboggan races for the snowball, and it's a toboggan hill the rest of the year, so we don't want to interfere with that. And we also want to leave open green space just for park type functions, whether or not it just be like, people throwing a frisbee and those types of things. And it would also be visible from the roadway. So it'd front the park as people are driving by, and it wouldn't be set back from there. I hadn't considered putting that specific question in the survey, as in like it would be up to the community to decide the location. However, I could identify that and say this is where we're thinking, and if you want to go with it.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Day.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. You know, if you have even a reasonable idea of where it could go, and it sounds like you do, I think it would be lovely for that to be identified. And no, the question I wouldn't suggest be put in there, where would you put it? Right in the survey, but do you like this new location, and which of the two options would you prefer? I think that's a really good idea. And the final thought I had is, you know, the current tree, it has huge history. It's very important. It's special in the hearts of many folk in Dorset for very good reasons. And I wonder if we might consider this year during the lighting ceremony having a bit of a gratitude ceremony. And it could be just a couple of minutes. Maybe, you know, we could suggest that non-perishable food donations be placed at the base of the tree, or something, but a couple of minutes just to honor and acknowledge the importance of the tree, and to thank the tree before we move on.
Any other, sounds like a nice idea. Any other thoughts from council? I think if we're going to ask the public about a location for a new tree, we need to make sure that they understand that it's got to be in reasonable proximity to power, so that they can't just, you know, say, you know, some arbitrary location on the property that can't access power. But I look to you, Chris, to have the most suitable wording. Go ahead.
Yes, I think what I would do is I'd identify the general location just on a map, knowing that the tree might shift, you know, 20 feet in one way or the other, depending on the recommendations from the installer.
Any other questions or comments from council? Okay, I think we have a resolution to receive the report and to proceed with the survey. Could I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillors Berry and Richards.
Moved by Councillor Berry, seconded by Councillor Richard. Be it resolved that council receives report Parks, Recreation, Trails, PRT 2325 regarding Dorset Community Christmas Tree for information, and council directs staff to proceed with the public survey as outlined in the report, and to engage the Dorset Heritage Museum Committee regarding a plaque and dedication.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. The next item is fees for the rec center.
Yes, thank you. So as council will recall, at the last meeting, we discussed ratepayer, non-ratepayer fee structure for the entire PRT department. Council asked at that time that we bring back the discussion specifically about the Dorset Recreation Center fees. So this is what I have outlined for you today. And what I've added to the recommendation, and there's one option which is still the ratepayer discount, which is option B, which is the same one I presented at the last meeting. But what I've added as an option, and actually my recommended option, if council wants to go ahead with it, is when we're only talking about the Dorset Recreation Center and not all of the various software systems we use within the department, the administration of it changes, and or the opportunities for the administration of it changes, and it actually makes it quite simpler in that we have the ability with the software there to differentiate using GIS systems, et cetera, that people are residents based on their what they give us for their address, and therefore we can offer a non-ratepayer surcharge. And what that would do is we wouldn't change fees at all, other than my recommended fee increases for this year, which council will see later. But for non-residents or non-ratepayers, they would be charged a 20% surcharge the rates wouldn't change for ratepayers, and ratepayers would be encouraged that either they just give us their address and we're able to confirm it with the GIS system, or in some cases they may just have to show ID or some sort of proof if we're not able to figure it out simply. I have added what it would look like for the option B considerations with each fee category, just to give a visual idea of the discount that essentially a ratepayer would get if we went with a ratepayer discount. And a reminder that if we do that, we are losing revenues, which I don't think was the original intent of this process. So I've made the calculation to offset that revenue loss. So ratepayers would get a 20% discount, but at the same time, I'd be recommending that we increase rates overall by 8.28% to cover that revenue loss.
Thanks, Chris. I really appreciate the work that you put into this, because this has come back a couple of times. I personally really like your recommended option A of just adding a 20% surcharge to non-ratepayers. It seems the simplest process to follow, but I look to council for comments and or questions. Councillor Barry, then Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Yeah, I concur. I know it's been a big conversation with all of the facilities and trails and everything, but I feel that from your report here that it's clear, it's simple, and I think it's, although there is a possible revenue reduction, I think there's incentive here, and I don't know, even if we get more uptick in memberships and that, I think it's a win for the community, and I support it. I support option B.
Option B. Okay. Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Thanks very much. Chris, what are your thoughts on what constitutes a ratepayer? Would it be the people whose names appear on the tax bill, but not, for example, their sibling who co-owns the property? Or like, ratepayer is challenging in cottage country to really identify, and I wonder what your thoughts are.
And through you, Mayor, I'm sure there will be situations that we could not have foreseen, such as joint ownership, et cetera. And in those cases, it will require conversation. However, the simple way of looking at it would be the property owner and their family, which is their immediate family or their dependents, such as their spouse, or their dependent children up to the age of 18. Once those children are 18 or older, they're adults. They wouldn't, unless they own property, be ratepayers in that instance. And that's as far as it would go. I think if we got into a case of a joint ownership, we'd have to review those on a case-by-case basis.
Deputy Mayor Dayu.
So if, for example, if I were the daughter of the primary owner of the cottage and there were no bills that were in my name and certainly none that were addressed to my water access only cottage box office, what kind of proof would I require to show that I was a ratepayer? Or to prove, so, or conversely, if option A is accepted and it's a non-ratepayer surcharge, that I wouldn't be eligible for the surcharge, that I would be eligible for the normal fee.
Right. And in that case, if they lived in the house, so in the example I had just given, I think I was really just thinking of it relative to property ownership, and an example of, let's say, once the person has moved out and say their father owns a cottage on a lake, but they themselves are an adult and they don't own that cottage and they also don't live there. But if they were to live there, then they're now a resident. And if they were to show us proof that they're living in the municipality, such as like a driver's license, then that would suffice.
Madam CAO.
I think for clarification, like if there was a child that didn't have ownership of the cottage, but they weren't permanent residents here in Algonquin Highlands, they had a seasonal cottage, they would have to show, like a child would have to show that they still lived at home in the permanent residence, wherever that might be. So if they still lived at home with the parents, I would say that they would qualify as a ratepayer for the discount here at the cottage. But if they've moved out and are on their own and they have, you know, their own families and children, I would say and they're not a joint owner of the cottage, then they wouldn't qualify.
Sounds reasonable. Other comments or questions? Councillor Richards?
I'm just wondering, as we get deeper into this, who is a ratepayer discussion, what about like renters? So they're not technically, you know, on ownership, but they rent and they reside here.
Well, I mean, if you look at the qualifications or the requirements with respect to voting, if you rent a property, you qualify.
Yeah.
So I would think that we would probably stay on that same path.
Yeah. So in that case, like their driver's license is what would be acceptable, that they reside here rather than ownership of a property, I would guess.
Yeah, any documentation that they can show. Deputy Mayor Dayu?
Thanks. And Chris, have you considered just really simply summarizing these sorts of questions on the website so that people know where they fit and what proof of identity looks like, etc.? I think it might be helpful for some.
Through you, Mayor, certainly we have, and that is something that we will have to do because we'll also have to provide that information to our frontline staff. But I think through this discussion, the ratepayer versus non-ratepayer category was again something specific to kind of the whole situation, whereas I think it now makes sense to add the words to this consideration, resident and non-resident as well. So that would be part of that categorization. That would be part of the information that people have, and that would cover people in instances that they're renting a place. The intention would be that anybody who lives in or owns property and pays taxes in the township would get the rate. Or sorry, wouldn't have to pay the surcharge.
Any other questions? I'm seeing nodding heads for the most part. So I guess I would ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the report and to accept the recommendation of option A, that being a 20% surcharge for non-residents. Deputy Mayor Dayu and Councillor Barry.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, second by Councillor Barry. Be it resolved, Council receives Park Recreation and Trails Report PRT 2425 regarding Dorset Recreation Center fees for information, and that Council directs staff to implement option A as outlined in the report for Recreation Center past fees in 2026.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So next up is, this is definitely a fee structure day. Dorset snowball fees.
Yes, thank you. So same type of consideration as how we ended up having this discussion as the one that we just had. Now, what I've outlined here for council is what the current fee structure is. So it's $442 plus tax, which comes to $5 total, which facilitates efficient on-site transactions when we're talking about cash with volunteers and gloves on their hands. Children 2 and under are free. Visitors receive a collectible snowball button with their entrance fee, which, as everybody is aware of, is a very special part of the experience. But I've also outlined what our revenues are, where those are relative to our revenue targets, and where those revenues come from. So the snowball does benefit greatly from donations from individuals, from families, from businesses every year, and we average 55% of revenues. 48% of those are financial donations. 7% of those end up coming through the silent auction donations, where we get items donated. And this year's event realized a 4-year high of just over $8,000 in donations. The remainder of our revenues comes from snowball button sales, so entrance fees. And over the past 3 years, our cost recovery has been an average of 79%. This past February, it was 83%. Our fees bylaw sets a target recovery of 80%. So we are in line with meeting our target recovery rates. Now, next, there have been several changes in fees over the past several years, so I've outlined those for consideration. So in 2019, and the historical rate up until that point was $2.65 plus tax. This came to $3. In 2020, increased to $3.54, which made it 4%, which constitutes a 34% increase. And then in 2023, the committee voted in favor of raising it to $4.42, which made it $5 with tax, which constitutes a 25% increase. In the same time frame, and remembering that we canceled the event, unfortunately, in 21 and 22 due to the pandemic, inflation rates have been 12.1%. So I did look at our closest neighboring comparator who charges fees and runs a similar type event, which is Fire and Ice over in Bracebridge. They charge $10 per person, 6 and over, 5 and under free. But certainly looking for feedback from council. My recommendation is, just based on the fact that we're consistently meeting our cost recovery target amounts, and the fee is ingrained in the 33-year history of the event, that I'm recommending to maintain the current entrance fee with no increase for this year.
Thoughts, questions? Councillor Barry, then Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Yeah, I'm in full support of this. I think it's a great recommendation. I think that, I think, those people that still use cash, $5 is an easy transaction, and I support keeping it this way. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm also fully in support of keeping it at the current rate. And as council has discussed briefly in the past, I think for me, the first go-to would be seeing if in future years, like Bays would be able and interested to support offsetting those costs before we go to increasing the cost for the participants.
Councillor Richards.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I agree with leaving the charges as they are. And I know we're probably way too late in the year at this point. But I think, in the absence of the Recreation Committee, considering a committee specifically just for snowball would help in that cost recovery. I understand that the target is 80% right now, but one would hope that we could improve upon that to 100% or more for future events, and I think a committee could help to do that, along with maybe the goal of making it free for entry with cost recovery of donations and sponsors in the community, going forward for future years. The airport committee has had so much success. They do very well. There's no fee for entry. It's all donation, and it's going well. So one would hope we could move that methodology over to snowball and continue to make it a great event for the community.
So any thoughts on that? I would see that, if we were going to strike a committee, that would be something that would be due early next year, if that's in agreement. Any other comments about that? Mr. Card.
Yes, I can certainly understand the potential for a focused group looking for donations. But I will just point out that this past year would have been the first year that in some time that we were as staff fronting entirely the outreach for donations. And it was the highest amount it has been over the past 4 events. And we do anticipate that will increase this year. So if we went the direction of having a type of committee or a subcommittee that was focused on that, and a very clear goal was set, that may be possible. But when I'm looking at cost recovery and fee structures and how we run events, we're really looking to target that 80%. So if we're essentially making more revenue, we're increasing how good the event is. The fees then go into enhancing the event further and adding more to it, to the point that we're back to the 80% cost recovery. So, and that's based on the structure set for cost recovery targets. So we need to look at that, and I just need to have clear direction on if we wanted to go outside of that for that reason.
Well, I think today we're just looking strictly at agreement with the existing fee structure, and that's a topic that we can consider going forward, whether or not we think that there should be a targeted subcommittee to look at that. Like I don't disagree with what Councillor Richards is saying, is that the airport committee is becoming quite successful in increasing fees. But as you say, the more fees you get, the more activities you want to include, and it just keeps being a bit of a moving target. Because while the airport committee has been doing very well, we're also looking at things that we need to do to improve things, and there goes our revenue. Anyway, any other questions on the proposed continuing with the proposed fee? Could I have a mover and a seconder then on that to move forward with the $5 fee? Councillor Barry? Councillor Richards?
Moved by Councillor Barry, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved, Council receives Park, Recreation and Trails Report, PRT 2525, regarding Dorset snowball fees for information, and the council concurs with the recommendation in the report and directs staff to maintain snowball fees at the current rate.
All in favor? That's carried. Okay, next up are the Parks, Recreation and Trails fees for next year. I'm assuming, unless there are questions with respect to that's just included in a bylaw. Any questions or concerns about the fee structure that's being proposed? Okay, hearing none. So we have a resolution to accept the report and what's being proposed, or is that in the bylaw?
No, we have a motion just to accept the Parks and Rec Trails
Okay.
fees as amended.
Mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Shortreed, Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, Council receives the proposed 2026 Park Recreation Trails fees for information, and Council concurs with the recommended fees as amended and directs they be included in the 2026 Comprehensive Fees and Charges Bylaw and brought forward at the December 11th, 2025 regular council meeting.
All in favor? That's carried. Thanks for all your work on this, Chris. Much appreciated. Next up is the proposed environmental fees for next year. Good morning, Ms.
Good morning,
Murray.
Mayor and Council.
So, comments from you on your fee schedule, or you're just presenting it for us to accept or question?
Just a quick note, the only major change we have added just a cost of operations increase of 3%. And that's something we haven't traditionally done, but I think it does give a better reflection of our actual operating costs to which do have annual increases to them. So the only fee that didn't change with that was our minimum charge fee.
Questions or concerns about the proposed environment fees? Hearing none, well, you're really getting off easy. Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder to receive and approve the fee schedule as proposed? Councillor Shortreed, Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be resolved, Council receives the proposed 2026 environmental service fees for information, and Council concurs with the recommended fees and directs they be included in the 2026 comprehensive fees and charges bylaw and brought forward at the December 11th, 2025 regular council meeting.
All in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Melissa. Next up is Public Works and the proposed fees for airport and cemetery. Just a question to you, Don. Do we have resolutions separate for airport fees and a separate for cemetery fees, or are they all together?
It's all together in one.
Okay, thanks. Good morning, Mr. Thorne.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
So you have some recommended fee structures. Is there any comments that you wanted to make about them?
No, it's just standard increase for the year. You will note that we did not increase the fees for hangar group E, F, G, and H. The reason behind that is that we have expected work planned for that for those hangars, and felt that it wasn't a fair assessment to have an increase for the hangar fees when we're going to be doing quite a bit of work on them. So we left them as they are for this year. The only other one to talk about further is we did increase our aircraft parking fee. Basically, it didn't make sense. I shouldn't say it didn't make sense. It made more sense for us to increase the fees there based on the rentals that we've seen over, or the parking fees we've seen over the past year, and to just keep us in line with other aviation locations. From the airport into the cemetery, it was a standard increase for this year, but you will see as we are able to do winter burials this year, it is a larger increase for a winter burial.
One question with respect to the hangars and the work that needs to be done on the hangars. How inconvenienced are the tenants going to be when we do that work?
At this time, it's unknown. We still are investigating the extent of the work that is needed. Best case scenario is they can stay in their locations while the work is being completed. Worst case is that we would have to move them out for a short period of time while we do the work. So we're still investigating that, and we'll certainly be coming back with more details.
Okay, sorry if I've asked you to jump the gun a little bit.
That's okay.
Any questions from council on either airport or cemetery fees? Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Thanks. Yeah, I've got a comment on the airport fees and a question on the cemetery fees. Comment on the airport fees is I really do appreciate the differentiation that you've put in for the airport parking increases. Recognizing that a daily fee is a daily fee and people are going to come and go and that's great. But once you start staying for a month or a year, that's a different story. And that is reflected in the fees. And I do appreciate that differentiation, even from the week to the month. I think that's spot on. So thanks very much for that. And a question regarding cemetery, although this may be more for admin, I'm not sure. I see the memorial plaque for the green burial section is a $500 fee. To a user looking from the outside, that seems fairly high, and I wonder if someone could just explain why that rate was chosen.
That would likely
That-
be best to. I'll let you go ahead, Don.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, Adam. Yes, that fee is the cost recovery that is charged by the company that provides the service.
Okay.
It does sound like a substantial amount of money, but if it's simply cost recovery, I guess there's not much we can do about it. So the purchase of the plaque itself and the engraving and the attaching it to the stone.
That is correct, and it also is bronze as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Councillor Barry, can I see your hand up?
Yeah, that was my question too, just in regards to comparing the columbarium lettering at 425. I just wanted clarification on that, but if it's because of the material, yeah, it'd just be nice if the two lettering engravements were the same, but I understand.
Any other questions or comments about either of these fee schedules? So could I have a mover and a seconder? Now, I'm sorry, Don, did you say separate resolutions or one?
No, there's just one for both.
Okay, mover and a seconder to accept the fees as proposed for both the airport and cemetery. Councillor Barry, Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Barry, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, Council receives the proposed 2026 airport and cemetery services fees for information, and Council concurs with the recommended fees and directs they be included in the 2026 comprehensive fees and charges bylaw and brought forward at the December 11th, 2025 regular Council meeting.
All in favor?
Madam Mayor, may I ask one more question of Adam before he disappears?
Will it have an impact on the resolution?
No.
Could we have an all in favor first, and then you can ask your question? All in favor of the resolution? That's carried. Okay, proceed with your question.
Yeah, apologies for that. That's an oversight. Adam, just wondering when we're looking at the airport parking fees again, say someone comes for a week and then leaves for a day and then comes back for another week and then leaves for a day. Is that something that can be aggregated into a monthly charge, or would it be literally counting the days as they come and go?
Yeah, to try and be as fair as possible, it's basically the days that they're on site, because we get into a bit of a gray area on, if they came for a couple weeks and then they leave for a day and then come back. And I can see what you're saying here, but I don't want our staff getting into, making the decision on, okay, well, they just left for a day and then they came back. We would just strictly charge them for the time that they're on board. And then if they choose to pay for a month in advance and they go and leave and come back, I mean, that's fine. They've paid for their month. It's up to them to use it accordingly. But we tried to stay out of the weeds of staff guessing. So we're going to try and catch them when they come in, talk to them about how long they're going to be there, get them to pay, whether that's prepay or pay just before they leave. But it's basically just as every day that they're there, they would be charged for it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next is a winter burial equipment purchase.
Thank you. Yeah, just as we were kind of continuing on with the green burials, we've been talking a lot about how we can do the burials ourselves and the equipment that's needed and staff time and things of that nature. And we have a really good plan that myself and the admin staff had worked on regarding, if the weather allows staff to open and close the grave, then we certainly will. And if we are going to be the ones to do it, the only tool that we really don't have in our arsenal right now is a frost ripper. Essentially, it's a hook that has a tooth on it that allows us to break through the frost easier than trying to use a tooth on a bucket. It's a kind of a unique design, only unique in the sense of it's for frost. It's not a unique tool by any means. But we're proposing to have one. And so when we do our own winter burials, this tool will come in handy for us to use and be more efficient opening a grave site. So we're proposing to purchase one for our backhoe.
Any questions about the acquisition? Councillor Barry?
I support the acquisition. I guess my question is, by having this, does this mean that the winter burial can be done conceivably in-house opposed to contracted service?
Through you, Mayor. So the way that it's going to work for us for winter burials is this tool will allow us to open the graves more efficiently. We'll be able to open graves with the equipment we have. It's just a little bit more aggressive on our equipment, trying to break through the frost. Where we will have to define whether or not staff can open it or a contracted service will strictly depend on staff availability and the weather conditions. As you can imagine, if it's a blinding snowstorm, ice storm, well, we're not going to stop operations to open a grave. We would have to hire a contractor to come in and do that. So we're certainly going to take it case by case and try and open it ourselves. If we can't, then we have the ability to have a contractor come in.
And this piece of equipment with just a single tooth would stop the possibility of teeth breaking off a regular bucket, correct?
No, not really. This is more, it's a design tool for breaking through frost. If you can envision that our buckets currently are X amount of inches wide and it takes up a lot of surface area. So when you start going into the ground with it, it's harder, it's more difficult to break up the frost. This tool is it's almost like an ice pick, if you will, and it allows the frost to be broke up a lot easier. So it's less abuse on the equipment and more efficient for us to open a grave. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Any other questions or concerns? If not, could I have a mover and a seconder to approve the acquisition? Councillor Shortreed and Richards.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved that Council receives Public Works Report PW 3025 regarding the purchase of a frost ripper for information, and Council concurs with the recommendation made in the said report and authorizes this purchase to be funded from the cemetery operations account.
All in favor? That's carried. Next up is your report on the AMCO convention that you attended and trade show. Sounds like it was a good experience.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This actually was attended by our airport coordinator, Kaylee. I unfortunately was unable to attend this year, so she went. And yes, it was a great experience for her. Kaylee is well versed in our aviation world, so she had a great time there, making lots of great contacts and bringing back a great amount of information with new ideas. So she just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to attend this.
Well, she's more than welcome, especially if it was a learning experience and good experience for her. Could I then have a mover and a seconder to receive the report? Councillor Shortreed and Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, Council receives Public Works Report CO 3225 in accordance with the Township's conference policy regarding staff attendance at the AMCO convention and trade show conference for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Okay, next is a little discussion about stump grinding.
Yes, thank you. As council is aware, we did do the tree clearing at the airport, and it is almost complete. I think this week is the last finishing touches on it. But while I was on site with the contractor, he did mention about doing some stump grinding As the report says in the original tender, we left it out only due to the cost. We were really worried about the cost being driven up pretty high. And as you can see, we were definitely lower on our estimates when we approved the project. So staff is recommending that we go ahead with the stump grinding. Basically, a machine that's already on site will just grind the stumps below the ground surface, and then they'll clean up the area to make it nice and smooth. Like I said, originally we decided not to go with stump grinding or removal because we were trying to save on costs. But after being on site and taking a look at it, when we go to clear the trees, in say 5-10 years from now that grow up, it's going to be very difficult for any kind of machinery to drive over the stumps, cleaning up the small growth that started. So we would be right back into a grinder, essentially. Some of you may have seen this machine. It's actually Hydro uses something very similar on the sides of the road. It's just a big drum on the front of a machine that pounds down the ground and it chews up everything in front of it. So staff is proposing that while they're there finishing up, that they would continue with the stump grinding. In addition to this, we also feel like it would be a benefit to the municipality. In the event that there is unfortunately a collision or a crash at the end of the runways, it'll allow emergency crews to get in more efficiently versus trying to drive over stumps and have to get ATVs. They'd be able to drive vehicles directly into it. So there is a benefit to that as well.
Any questions? The only comment that I would make is that at some point in time, I would like us to have a discussion, and I don't mean today by any means, about what constitutes what comes out of the airport development fund versus what's actually airport maintenance. But in this case, I don't have any question about the recommendation that you're making. Could I have a mover and a seconder then to proceed with the stump grinding? Moved by Councillor Barry, seconded by Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Barry, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, Council receives Public Works Report PW 3425 regarding the Stanhope Municipal Airport stump grinding for information, and Council concurs with the recommendations made in the said report and authorizes a sole source procurement to Diamond Tree Care in accordance with Section 11.4 of the Township's purchasing policy to grind the remaining stumps with the cleared areas at the airport at an additional cost of $19,375 plus tax, and the Council directs the additional project cost to be funded from the Airport Development Reserve.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you so much, Adam.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. So next up is finance and the proposed admin fees. And if you could all just give me one moment, I need to change my mouse. I dropped my mouse on the floor and it might take me just a minute to reconnect. So I'll be right back.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Good morning, Jeannie. Yes. Mayor's back. Here she is.
So if I can just proceed, there's only a few minor changes to the admin fees in relation to the bylaw. One of them is just to simply add the word email or fax. We've had a few requests over the time to email information instead of faxing. It's the same premise, same process basically. So it's just added that. And then the other is just to add in the charging station fees in relation to the Dorset Rec Center. Initially, we had just the Stanhope charging center rates in the bylaw, but we've included now the newer ones in Dorset Rec Center as well.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, could I have a mover and a seconder then to accept the admin fees? Councillor Shortreed and Councillor Berry.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Councillor Berry. Be it resolved, Council receives the proposed 2026 administration fees for information, and the Council concurs with the recommended fees and directs they be included in the 2026 comprehensive fees and charges bylaw and brought forward at the December 11th, 2025 regular Council meeting.
All in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Treasurer. So under administration business, I see we have a change in meeting time for December the 11th. And the rationale, you're going to speak to that, Madam CAO?
Yes, as council will recall, we mentioned at the last meeting just off camera about staff wanting to hold a Christmas breakfast for staff and council. So that would be held that day. So if council supports that, we will start the regular council meeting at 10 a.m. and we'll provide notice in that regard.
Okay. Any questions or comments about that? I'm glad to hear that we're going to start doing a little joint Christmas celebration. Sounds great. So do we need a motion with respect to that?
Yes, I have one drafted to change the
Okay,
time.
could I have a mover and a seconder? Councillors Berry and Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Berry, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, Council directs the December 11th, 2025 council meeting start time be changed from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m.
All in favor? That's carried. Next is the appointment to the Land Division Committee. I guess that's something that needs to be done on an annual basis. This is a role that I have fulfilled for a number of years and would like to continue. And Councillor Berry has been my alternate. I guess with respect to alternates, are you still willing to continue in that role, Councillor Berry? Is there anyone else who is absolutely wishing to become an alternate to the Land Division? Otherwise, if we could have a resolution reappointing myself and Councillor Berry as the alternate, unless there are any objections. Could I have a mover and a seconder then to that effect? Councillor Shortreed and Richards.
By Councillor Shortreed, seconded by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved, Council appoints Mayor Danielson to the County of Haliburton's Land Division Committee and Councillor Berry as the alternate.
All in favor? That's carried. I will comment with respect to the Land Division at the county. We do have a new planner at the county, and the change in information and approach is rather extraordinary. And there's a lot more detail provided. It makes the Land Division's decision making a lot easier, and just a little bit of information that the process has become improved. Next is the Stanhope Museum Committee update. Any comments from members of council on that? Deputy Mayor Dayu.
I do have a question for those who are in attendance. I see that the Stanhope Museum and log shoe brochure needs updating. What are your intentions regarding the log shoot portion of that brochure for the next printing?
I guess we need to be making a decision about what we're going to do with the log shoe before they could decide what they were going to put in their brochure.
I do see a committee member will work with the brochure designer on revisions and bring to the committee and staff for approval. So just curious.
Well, and that's something that I found a little interesting, that in 2 instances it said a committee member will be doing it rather than specifying who would be doing the work. it just seems a bit general. Can we have a comment on that? Well, Councillor Richards, then Councillor Barry.
Yeah, I mean, Carol is the one who's going to be working on the brochure. The log sheet was mentioned within the meeting. And I think, you know, the intent is probably not to have these updated until the spring-ish. So hopefully we'll have an idea of where we're headed with the log sheet by that point in time and before a new brochure is printed. Just want to bring up on the minutes the hydrangeas and sorry to the left of the entrance that they want remove. I think they're looking for confirmation of that happening.
Because there's where the communication, you know, it in my mind, when there's a request or you know, a piece of information like that, should channel through either one of the members of council to the CAO for follow up on that. Councillor Barry.
Yeah, just further to that, I apologize. I was not at the committee meeting when the brochure was discussed. However, what Councillor Richards is referring to was at our most recent meeting, which was in October. But it was discussed that just with, you know, there's been some change in maintenance, and one of the recognized projects within the museum has been some exterior painting. Some of the paint that is on the building is chipping off, so they just wanted an update if that was going to be happening. And then the committee or not the committee, but some of the members have tried to work on this hydrangea that's out front, and it's beyond the committee's capabilities. So that's sort of been a new recognition within the garden there on the outside of the museum. So just wanted to clarify that, but my intention is to bring that at the next minutes, but just because these minutes were up, we would bring them forward today.
I can see that, you know, it would be, I mean, I'll look to the CAO for comment, but I can see we would be able to remove the hydrangea this year. Painting the wall might be a bit late, unfortunately. That little more pressure wasn't applied earlier in the year to get that project done. Any comment, Madam CAO?
Certainly we can, and I actually was drafting an email to Adam to make those arrangements with maintenance staff. So we can get the hydrangea removed this year, certainly. The painting will depend on what is the priorities for the remaining part of the year, as well as weather, of course.
Yeah, it's getting a bit late now to do painting, and it's kind of hit and miss. You might plan to do the project and it's like freezing rain. Councillor Barry.
Just so if the painting does not come out of this budget item, it will be deferred to next year. So any unspent expenses, you know, will be pushed forward to the next budget.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions about the Stanhope Museum? Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive the minutes? Deputy Mayor Dayu, Councillor Richards.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayu, second by Councillor Richards. Be it resolved, Council receives the September 15th, 2025 Stanhope Museum Committee meeting minutes for information.
All in favor? That's carried. So next is the Dorset Museum Committee update. Any comments or highlights that we need to consider?
No, these minutes were from September. We've had a subsequent meeting since then. You know, they're continuing to work on these wonderful friends of the, or sorry, Dorset videos, and now that the rec center's back open, they're talking about having a couple of showings there. No dates have been determined yet. They're already in the beginning of planning for Heritage Day next year. And yeah, there's been a lot of work done behind the scenes, just with the Friends working with staff, and the anticipated gazebo project for next year. Yeah, it's not in these minutes, but since then there has been another donation from the Lowry Foundation, which will probably be on the next agenda.
Oh, that's fabulous. The only comment I would make is that the museum committee needs to really stay on top of the college to make sure that they can take advantage of the gazebo construction for next year.
Yeah,
Angie.
that continues.
Okay.
Just for council's information, our project manager has been dealing directly with the college on that, and
Okay,
we
good.
are secured for our project next year.
Yay. Good news. Thanks, Angie. Deputy Mayor Day.
This is more than anything a memory refresh, I suppose, that I'm looking for. But under the section update on outbuilding, it does appear that the committee is talking about council having already set aside some funding to repair the building, that we're looking at footings and foundations of the building. They're wondering if professional foundation people have come in. And I'm just not sure that is consistent with my memory on where council was with the discussion about the future of that building, and whether it could be even refurbished, given that there are now accessibility needs, etc., that we'd have to consider once we start working on public buildings. And I wonder if the CAO or someone could just speak to whether what's written in the minutes is consistent with their memory on where we are in council's conversation.
If I may, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Adam is working on that project to bring forward to council on what those options would look like. There definitely is accessibility challenges with the building as it sits. And so it's unlikely that the building would remain in its current state or fixable in any way. It's anticipated it will be a new structure.
Deputy Mayor Day.
I guess my question then for the council members who sit on the committee, is the committee aware that this is a potential, if not likely, outcome? Because the minutes do appear like there's a lack of clarity on what's happening on our end.
I would say the committee is aware that, their hope is, as a museum, always for restoration, correct? But they understand that it's being looked at by staff, and that it will be, financial and accessibility dependent.
Any other questions or comments from the Dorset Museum?
No, just from our last from the last meeting. It's not really a question, and I can touch base with Chad, but there seems to be some glitch with the website. When you go to do a Google search for the Dorset Heritage website, it doesn't take you directly to the website. It takes you to the Township of Algonquin Highlands. But then when you go to the Google, how it brings up the museum and the contact and everything, it's that link specifically that it just takes you to like an unopenable site. So I don't know. I was going to touch base with Chad, but it just dawned my memory when I saw the minutes come up here again.
Okay, maybe that's something that yourself and or Angie can follow up on.
Sure.
Okay, could I have a mover and a seconder then to receive the minutes? Councillor Shortreed, Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Shortreed, second by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, council receives the September 30th, 2025 Dorset Museum Committee meeting minutes for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Just a comment, I know that at this point in time, we might normally take a break, but I don't know that there's an awful lot more on the agenda. If we just push through if that's all right, unless somebody needs a break. Okay. Roma Conference delegations. I've got to say I don't have an awful lot of faith in the delegation process, but I would look to members of council to comment on whether or not you feel a delegation is necessary. Deputy Mayor Dayu?
Thanks. More for county, but for Algonquin Highlands information, my keen hope is that county council would consider a delegation on funding to libraries, which have remained stagnant for, I think, 20 years, like an incredible amount of time. And it's now having major impacts on Halliburton's ability to operate our library at the standard that we want. So I'm hoping that the county council would think about that, but for Algonquin Highlands' information.
Yeah, actually, I think it's been 20 years for the last 10 years, so we're probably approaching closer to 30 years since there's been any increase in funding, and you know that's not acceptable. But I would definitely suggest that be brought up at the next county council meeting. I think there's one next week.
Yeah.
So yeah, good plan. Any other? Angie, do you have any thoughts on delegations that we might or should be making if council doesn't?
I don't think at this time, no.
You know what, I just have, maybe I'm a little bit tainted about delegations, but you know, I've gone to so many and you get a response from them that's, you know, oh, you know, we're so glad that you came and we'll, you know, we'll look into this and get back to you. And nothing happens. And, you know, I think that a more direct approach than to try and deal with something in the midst of, you know, ministers taking dozens of delegations and, you know, trying to give reasonable responses is just not successful. So I don't think we need to have, there's no resolution required there. We're not proposing anything. So next up is the proposed council meeting schedule. You've all seen the proposed schedule. I know that you all know my feelings on going down to one meeting a month, but I also recognize that next year, given the election, will likely be extremely challenging for our clerk's department. And I also recognize that, you know, should we need to have a meeting, we can always call one. So anyway, looking for any comments or concerns about that. Deputy Mayor Dayu?
Yeah, I wonder if we could speak to the possibility of increasing June meetings to 2 meetings this year. Given the schedule, I don't know though, maybe the clerk's department could tell us about heaviness of obligations, you know, in June time versus in October, November time.
Thanks for bringing it up, because that would have been one thing that I would have suggested as well, that we look at June and trying to maintain the same schedule and then keep on with the one meeting a month, you know, as it gets closer to the election and things ramp up even more. Comments from either the CAO or the clerk?
Through you, Mayor. Yes, with June, it's just been historic that council only has one meeting in June during the summer. With regards to the election, it does start to get very busy. Nominations open May 1st. And it's just continually, we have to make sure our procedures are in place. And with the increase in meetings, if that's what council's wish, we would make it happen.
Councillor Richards, and then Councillor Berry.
I think again with June, you know, we can always call a special meeting if we need to. I don't think there's any foreseen reason that we have to add to the clerk or other staff's plate in advance.
Councillor Berry.
Yeah, my feel I could concur with June, just in regards to, you know, building application or zoning applications and that type of thing. Sometimes it's quite busy in like, the late spring, early summer to get projects. I don't want to see any projects going behind, but I'm happy to have a special meeting as well. So I'm good to go with the majority.
Okay, well, and I would say that, I mean, building permit applications don't come to council anyway. That, that's something.
No, sorry, I meant zoning. Sorry.
Okay. All right, a mover and a seconder then to receive the meeting schedule as proposed. Acknowledging that we can hold a special meeting if required. Councillor Richards and Councillor Shortreed.
Thank you, Council. Moved by Councillor Richards, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, Council acknowledge receipt of report CO 825 regarding the 2026 council meeting schedule for information, and the council concurs with the recommended dates in said reports and sets the 2026 council meeting dates as follows: January 15th, February 5th and 19th, March 5th and 19th, April 2nd and 16th, May 7th and 21st, June 18th, July 16th, August 13th, September 17th, October 8th, November 16th, which is the inaugural meeting, November 19th, and December 10th.
All in favor? That's carried. And at what point do we become a, what's the term for council that has few?
Lame duck.
Lame, yeah, I hate to call ourselves lame ducks. When does that happen?
Through you, Mayor, following the nomination day closure and following the elections, it will be determined. Staff will be bringing a report forward later in the year to outline that for council.
Okay, right on. All right, next is the new sewage system program inspector. And we had asked for a job description, which has been attached. So I guess that would be the CAO that would be speaking to that.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And exactly this is just a follow-up from the September 18th meeting. So the job description has been developed. It is before you for consideration. The job has been rated by the consultant, and you'll see that in the report and where it will land in our pay grid, and what that will be as an impact for the 2026 budget. And so just looking for council support to adopt the job description and proceed with recruitment.
My only concern is it still remains, that just how busy this individual will be during the, kind of what I would call the off season for inspections. I'm wondering if there is some opportunity for that individual to support the other members of that department. Should that be required, or would it strictly remain septic inspections and nothing else?
If I may, Mary, yeah, absolutely. If it becomes a task issue where they have time on their hands, which I don't anticipate that they will, we will definitely make that a possibility. Just for council's information as well. Interestingly, I was reading the Lake of Bays budget presentation yesterday, and they are proposing the exact same position. And they've added it to the levy the same as we have.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, just because the word budget was mentioned, I will say that I see that we've received information on OMPF funding, and that we will be getting a bit of an increase there, which will help our budgeting process.
You will, yeah.
Good, I think it was something like 186,000 or in there somewhere.
I don't have the amount, but yes, there is definitely an increase for us, which is great news.
Okay, so we have nothing in planning.
Sorry, Mayor, we just have to go back to the motion.
Oh, sorry. So could I have a mover and a seconder, or did we have a mover and a seconder for the meeting schedule? Could I have a mover and a seconder to accept the job description and posting of this position? Deputy Mayor, do you? Councillor Barry.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Dayou, second by Councillor Berry. Be it resolved, Council receives report CAO 1025 regarding the new sewage system program inspector administrator job description for information, and Council concurs with a recommendation made in the said report and approves a sewage system program inspector administrator as presented and directs the recruitment for the position begin immediately.
All in favor? That's carried. Fingers crossed we find some good candidates. So nothing under planning. We'll move to external board meetings. Any update on the Dorset partnership and or the health hub?
Neither at this time.
Gosh, they're not exactly a house on fire.
Nope.
Anything on Upper Trent water management or Muskoka Watershed Council?
Nothing on the Upper Trent Water Management. The Muskoka Watershed Council, I was at the last meeting. There was a presentation on fire prevention, you know, around your cottage, which I think we've all seen before at Lake Association meetings. Update on membership and in their membership is dwindling a little bit. They're looking for more volunteers. Of course they're looking to come up with more funding to do what they do. That's about it.
Any update on the Hallshawk FOCA project?
Not at this time, no.
Okay, under OPP Detachment Board, we're still working on improving communications between the detachment and the detachment board. I think there's a meeting later on this month for the detachment board. There was something that I was going to bring to the council's attention, and right now I can't remember exactly what it is. And so anyway, unless well, let's move on. Is there anything that you wish to bring to us with respect to the library board?
Dorset Library branch is reopened. Hooray.
Oh, good. That's good. I mean, that the timing on that whole problem was really disappointing, and I'm glad to hear that they're back in operation. Anything under community safety?
No, not yet. Our next meeting is next week. So at the following council meeting, I'll have something to report.
Okay, Muskoka River Watershed. So County Council, I would say that they're working very diligently on prep of the budget. I know that the Finance Committee, which consists of the warden and Councillors Fury and Carter, have been taking a look at what's being proposed. And I think that, it looks to me from what I have heard that there's a reasonable increase considering the severe challenges that are being thrown at us from the city of Kawartha Lakes for services there, for housing and generally for services across the board. I think that the county staff have brought forward something fairly reasonable. Hopefully the budget will be approved in December. I think that's the plan. And they've done everything they can to keep things, at a dull roar, considering that the lower tiers are also going to be faced with a hit from OPP, and the increases there. So I look forward to hearing, the formal presentation at an upcoming meeting. Other than that, I'm not sure if council has been made aware that a decision after a year of wrangling, a decision has been made to go ahead with the improvements of both buildings, the old land titles office and the regular admin building, to move the council chambers and to make the admin building fully accessible. So that work will be proceeding. And I'm not sure that there's anything else in particular that's happening that of note. So we will move on to correspondence. And I will comment that, you know, there was a direction that council made to write a letter to the minister about Crown land and accessing Crown land and challenges associated with that. I have prepared a draft of that letter, and we just thought it might be beneficial to wait and see, because there was correspondence that went out from the clerk to all the municipalities to see what came back to us in the form of any like concerns that we might need to add to that letter. But if we don't get anything within the next week or so, that letter will go out. Otherwise, I don't believe that anyone has asked for comment or to ask any of the correspondence on the listing to be pulled. Am I correct on that, Don?
Yes, no.
So could I have a mover and a seconder to receive the correspondence summary? Councillors Richards and Barry.
Moved by Councillor Richards, second by Councillor Berry. Be it resolved, Council receives the November 6th, 2025 correspondence listing for information.
All in favor? That's carried. Next are is the bylaw to deal with the proposed speed limits at the Hawk Lake Road. So Councillor Richards, if you could confirm that you can leave the room you're in, or leave your ability to hear or take part in a discussion. And we'll holler at you to come back. Any comments with respect to that? I think there was some, the only comment that I would make is that I think that there might have been some concern about the location of one of the signs, but I think it was the first of 2 or 3 signs. And I did ask that the marina manager just wait until all signs were put in place before voicing any concerns. I'm not sure if anything has been raised with admin staff on this. Angie, are you aware of anything? Okay. Any comments or concerns about the proposed bylaw? Hearing none, then could I have a mover and a seconder to pass said bylaw? Councillors Berry and Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Berry, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, bylaw 2025-98, being a bylaw to regulate speed on Big Hawk Lake Road, be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed.
All in favor? Okay, is it possible to text Councillor Richards to come back? Sure, she'd be excited to come back for the confirmatory bylaw. Welcome back. So the next is the confirmatory bylaw. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Berry and Councillor Shortreed.
Moved by Councillor Berry, seconded by Councillor Shortreed. Be it resolved, bylaw 2025-99, being a bylaw to confirm the proceeding council held during its November 6th, 2025 regular meeting, be received and read a first time, considered read a second and third time, and finally passed with the corporate seal affixed.
All in favor? That's carried. And finally, could I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Berry and Deputy Mayor Dayu.
Moved by Councillor Berry, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dayu. Be it resolved, the meeting is hereby adjourned at 10:33 a.m.
All in favor? That's carried. I will say that from time to time, we have been completely out of whack when we try to estimate the length of time that a meeting is going to take. I did estimate that this meeting would take an hour and a half, and we're pretty close. So well done. Thanks, everyone.